Happy is trekking through Yellowstone.
All of my
Very cool. We are live. I know. Same.
honestly, we all are.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. Hello, hello. Welcome to our community. Okay. Thank you, of course, to Rich and Anna's, John and Jim for the lovely treats, and you're welcome. You're there, yeah. A lot of people have been benefiting from my long goodbye. Treats. Thank you for being here today. I want to get this started. Yeah.
But it's still gonna record.
Yeah, still gonna record.
I just want to be sure. Thank you.
Okay, good. So we'll call this meeting to order, and we'll start with Jim as some introductions.
Morning, everyone. We don't have that many opportunities during the summer to make sure you see how our staff extends. But we have 3 members of the team here that I want to make sure you're all aware of. They're sitting behind you there. But, sorry if you got to kind of spin around. 2 of them have been with us for more than a year, and 1 is brand new. But let me just start with Haley, who is our most experienced intern. Haley West there in the middle. Haley came to us through the BOCES program that's on your campus and started working with us as an intern when she was in that program during the school year. And then we were able to convince her to come last summer. She's at UAlbany, and then we were able to convince her to come back again this summer. She does a lot of the work that we are trying to fill the gap with Emily, well, after she's left, but she's also helping in a variety of other things together with the other 2 interns associated with our entrepreneurship. And we have Aiden Murphy, who's right behind Mike there. And Aiden is, again, somebody who's been here for multiple summers, a finance student at Bentley, graduate of Glens Falls High School. You may be familiar with his family. He is part of a couple of kids who, they're not kids anymore, but I first met when they were in high school, and they were doing a program around business case, and it turned into a national competition. And the team from Glens Falls here went on to the national competition and did very, very well. And so Aiden and Jack, together with Nick Westfall and some others that have, they've taken that experience and they've been trying to figure out things to do with it. We're very glad to be able to provide them with a home. Aiden in particular is focused on many of the lake initiatives that are part of the startup program that we're going to launch in the fall. And then Jack Putnam in the other side over here. This is his first summer with us. He is a finance student at Fairfield. Again, somebody who's well known, lives down the street from me. His family and his efforts I knew of before we were able to talk to him into coming here. Aiden works with us nearly full time, and Jack and Haley maybe somewhere between 20 and 30 hours a week. But we get an enormous lift from the work that they do. We benefit from it year round, and I'm hopeful that they get a lot too. So quickly, if you wouldn't mind, would each one of you just give just a tiny bit of the things that you're working on, just an example of what you work on? We'll start with you.
Yeah. So with the reverse entrepreneurship, we're kind of focused on some of the Glens Falls concepts right now. So we're looking at this plan for 36 Elm Day. Once that's done, we're looking at something we can do to commercialize the farm above pharmacy. And that's just a small bit. Won't take too much time.
Thank you.
I recently learned from Logan so we have to update the website. So I've been updating our incentives that we have, and I've been looking on marketing things like the lunch and the program.
I've been working closely with Aiden. We're doing the indoor farm and the 36 Elm. We're looking at the finances just today and yesterday. We also helped from the CFA1 application.
We're excited to have you.
Well, and as someone, as I'm going out, whose son Jack also benefited from interning with Jim, although not at EDC, but Jim is very committed to helping our young people get engaged with industry and the work that we do in the community. So thank you for continuing to promote and support. So we want you to stay in the community when you finish all of your great work at universities, but also we hope we benefit from the time with us just as much as we benefit from you bringing fresh perspectives and fresh eyes to the ongoing opportunities and challenges we all face. So with that, we'll turn back to the business at hand. So the first, we'll hear from our committees. The executive committee is the first committee we met last week, and primarily talked about succession planning as well as continuing to look at ways we can enhance our board membership. That will continue discussions with the governance committee. Let's see, that was primarily the largest points of the discussion. And that Vice Chair Munsell, who is wrapping off in Yellowstone right now, but will be back, of course, will take my place in terms of managing the meetings going forward until more permanent care is designated. So that was about it on the executive committee. The governance or audit and finance committee, these absence. Yeah.
Do you want me to just roll it in with the financial?
I think that would be great. Yep.
So we met on the 10th of June. But there wasn't very much. So we talked about the pro forma budget, which Jim I think might talk more about it a little bit later, but we've started that process. That's the budget that we need to post in October on Paris, and it's the budget that looks the forecast for the next 4 years. And the financial and the rest of the stuff we talked about is the financial report. So the fund balance is currently just over $1 million. Of that, a little over half of it is cash. And of that, a little under half of it is in a money market fund with NBT. We did talk about exploring, like that money market fund had been over 250 threshold for insurance FDIC. So we talked about moving 50,000 someplace else. I did look at other banks, and we have some at Glens Falls National. We wanted to look at a third bank, but really the rates that we got with NBT were really very positive, very good. So I invested 50 or put 50 into a T-bill at 4.31%, and I think the audit finance committee thought that we could probably continue to do this every month so that we could have this lot of maturity. So another 50,000 is going in this week. It's like my for purchasing. The receivables are just under 80,000. Almost all of that is what's due from our contracts, and all of it is, it's billed on time, and this is just a regular sort of, that takes to be paid. Paris Beach, we have a membership outstanding with them. They had a recent merger, and they needed to sign an engagement with them, the merger name before they could issue their membership check. So that's what coming. Accounts payable is the last of our 4 insurance policies. They've all been renewed, and that check is actually in my deck today. Prepaids are the same monthly prepaids they always are. It's just how we roll out the insurances and the website maintenance. Statement of activities. So I'm just going to look at the year. We are below budgeted by 16,000 on our membership. We did receive the same amount of membership that we did last year. We budgeted, for more. So we came a little short of that target. However, with our personnel expenses being undercounted by the marketing person, it kind of shakes out so that we're ahead by 20,000. And I expect that to be the shortfall that we're gonna have from the change in the contract with the principal, which is fantastic.
I think that, just want to make sure that you understood that last point. We're not backfilling the role that we have open because we need to produce a positive variance that will help us bring this back in line with our reduction in revenue for the back half of this year. And I think we have to have a larger discussion as an organization about sustainable funding model going forward. So we will do the best we can with the interns that we have over the summer. But in the fall, especially as we go into budgeting for the coming year, we'll all have to decide as a group as to what's sustainable or what path we want to take. Whether we really do have the option of bringing somebody back into that role or not, whether it be full-time or part-time. So this is by design that we're underrunning, and right now I think we're right on the line. We're producing a net reduction in our expenses that match the reduction in our.
Other questions? About finance or the financials in general? Governance committee. Couldn't make it today with someone that's reporting for place. Oh,
Lucky me.
we're so happy that you reported.
We wanted to send you off with a new report.
Put a Paul in the
There you go.
Thank
So we had an excellent meeting. We were talking, and obviously it's a discussion point of the board about new members as well as what the composition of the board should be. Additionally, you'll see in your packet and in the agenda that we have a couple of resolutions we would like to bring to the board so that everyone is aware the governance committee is recommending that we move the appointment of Kelly Durway. If anyone had doubts, she's actually already completed her paperwork. Puts their heads, yeah, heads and shoulders above the way I did. So I think we have a winner. Additionally, obviously, we do need to acknowledge how our bylaws have a permanent seat set aside for the board president of Cindy Adirondack, but we'd like to at least acknowledge the appointment in keeping with the bylaws. So two things that you'll see on the agenda. That's all I have.
We'll take up those actions with our agenda. Moving along, review the main financials. Are there any other questions? Board composition next steps. Again, I think the governance committee has been good. Thank you, Paul, for the suggestion of matrix to try to really map out strategically who we want to have on board to have a diverse representation of our economy. And so that those discussions will continue. You want to do the resolutions now? Trish says yes. Whatever Trish says.
Real quick before we do that, on the board compositions, it can get confusing because we've stayed static for a long time and we're not static. We increased the size of our board based on feedback we got from membership that there was an interest in broader representation from the business community that saw it. We're at essentially, we've essentially filled what were our original spots, but we still have 2 net new spots to fill. In particular, I'm working with Melanie on that, but there's a never-ending process of adding potential candidates, even if they're long-range candidates, that we can engage in different ways and potentially develop a pipeline of people who would be interested in serving with us in this capacity. And Trisha's maintaining that list. She continues to send that list to you. I think as you become aware of new names, just bring them to any of us and we'll just continue to add them. In particular, the last version of that list, I made sure that she highlighted some of the ones that came from the collaboration that Robert Niemer was the conduit for. I don't think he's the sole person that generated a list of potential candidates, but he's the one who brought it to us. So you'll see those identified in your roster. One thing that we're particularly focused on are things that are aligned with our emerging strategy. So whether it's the regionalization of the work that we do or the sectors that we're supporting, we want to look for people who maybe represent additional surface area even beyond the large scale employers and some of the traditional members that we have sought, so that we have this broader representation. We're really glad to have you here, Kelly from Stewart's, because one of the things that is important to us is finding the touch points for the community we serve. And it's different south than it is north, but particularly north. Hudson Headwaters and Stewart's and Arrow they're pretty much definitions of a community that we would serve. If those three entities are in a particular place, we probably are doing work with that particular community. So it's really helpful to have you guys here. We're glad to have.
Clarification, I sent the roster to the governance committee, but I can't find it.
Well, we will make it available to anybody who wants to, but I think the real thing we want to do is have you continue to contribute in an ongoing to it. Even if it's just a brainstorm, I met this person at a meeting and we should put them on. We'll do the like.
Before we go into the official resolutions, I was remiss in not introducing everyone to Kelly, because I'm not sure Kelly knows everyone at the team.
I was lucky enough to be introduced last week, so.
Oh, good. So do you know everyone?
Yes, I
Okay.
think so. I think everyone was here last week.
Well, but if we could just ask you, Kelly, did you prepare your 20-minute speech? The initiation. But we have, as Jim said, and we're thrilled that you are interested and eager to get your paperwork done and become a member of this board, but you know, you're bringing out wealth of knowledge. But would you mind just quickly kind of giving us a little overview of you?
Yep. So lifelong residents of Warren County. My family and I live in Queensbury. Both of my adult daughters are teachers at Queensbury School. I worked at Stewart's for 30+ years at this point, in different capacities, but right now as director of facilities. And it's my department that is building in all of the communities that we service. So I'm excited to have an opportunity to work with all of you.
Stewart's is always a great partner. Well, first, prove it.
Yeah.
Will be good. How do people feel about doing all the approvals in one motion, or we can do them on separate? Yes. How do I feel about it? Yes. Okay. So now take a motion to approve all of the resolutions in front of you, the financials, the meeting minutes from the May meeting, the approval of the appointment of Kelly Durway, and the approval of the acknowledgement of the incoming Senior Rhonda President, Stacia Hertz. Motion. Jim, second. Judy, any discussion? Comments, questions? All in favor, aye. Opposed? Same. All right, Kelly, welcome. Let's give her a round of applause. All right.
Sorry, you can't vote on anything.
Well, good morning.
Plenty of opportunity.
We've got some information, here in the folder if you want to scan through it. In the interest of trying to preserve some time for the acknowledgement of the longest standing person on our board, I'm going to probably go through this faster than we normally would. So if there are questions that you have, you're happy to pick them on, maybe one on one. But you continue to see the business activity trend up. This is a function of increased activity in two primary places. We've had a wave of activity around new startups, some of which came through the Startup 80K program. In particular, and something of note for you is, I would say 60% of the meetings that we've had with ventures that came out of Startup 80K are for ventures that are not in Warren County. Northern Saratoga County, Washington County, Hamilton County, Essex County, all have representatives or have businesses that are attempting to be started through the Startup 80K program and some of the entrepreneurial work that we're supporting. This, I think, is an important validation of the fact that we do work in a region that oftentimes doesn't have corollaries to us. And increasingly, our reputation has people coming to us, whether they go through a formal program like Startup 80K or not. I think of this as a very encouraging sign. We provide the support as best we can. Oftentimes, we have to connect them with municipal resources in their particular community if they're, for instance, seeking a particular form of financial support. But in terms of general support of helping them with their business plans, helping connect them to other resources, we will never end our relationship with them if they want to continue to provide or get services from us. We had a conversation with SCDC President Greg Connors to make sure he was aware. This is particularly true in the corridor from Saratoga North in Saratoga County. The sense there is that we can work on this together, and it doesn't matter whether people come across the bridge to us or go south into Saratoga looking for support. We will work together to get them what they need. Some of our exciting ventures. One of them is a new hotel that's looking to open.
It's like pleasant.
Yeah, so it's in the depths of Hamilton County.
Oh, yeah.
Another was a venture in downtown Saratoga that they were looking to launch this summer, and they needed as much help as they could to kind of get it off the ground. There's another venture where there was a coffee shop in Hamilton County, and then there are the, I would say, traditional, but businesses that we're used to seeing from Warren and Washington County in this pile. But we typically only talk to 2 or 3 that come out of the Startup ADK program because they're not ready. In this particular one, I would say half of the programs were ready to launch in some way. It's a really important continued evolution of the entrepreneurial ecosystem that we keep talking about. So trapped in these numbers are some unique new trends. John, is there anybody I forgot to mention that in that pile of new stuff?
No, a couple coming up from EDC.
Yeah, this is a very interesting one too. We were connected to them. They have family connections to this area, but they are 2 people who have been displaced by the actions in Washington over the last 6 months, spent careers, senior positions in the US government. They literally, like so many younger people that we talk about, looked at all the places they could go and had a list of, should we go to Boulder, Colorado? Should we go to Austin, Texas? They've decided to come here. They're both looking for help to launch a business that they're looking to start, and also to essentially integrate into the community. And they see us as the place to go. That's a combination of people telling them that we would be a helpful resource, and then when they had the initial encounter with us, realizing that there was a lot more to be had. They're almost like a company. There is a company that they're looking to start, and it may or may not be in Warren County. And if it turns out that the right location for it is south of us, we would help and hand that off. But they're going to live here, and they need help finding housing, and they want to try to integrate into the community. And they think that we are the place to start. Really, really thrilled to help people like that. And their story is fascinating, so we can hopefully introduce them to some of you as they become more visible and in our community. On the next page, we talk about the breakdown. You'll continue to see that it looks like these sectors on the pie don't move a lot, but to us, just a movement of even a few percent in some of these, because the denominator there is fairly large, is significant. We still provide 2/3 of our support to existing businesses rather than net new businesses. But when we are looking at net new businesses, we are certainly seeing a different spread of those. For instance, retail, that number of businesses that we're supporting in retail is as large as it's been since I've been here in the organization, which I don't know if you could call that a rebound for the retail category or whether it's essentially a turnover in the retail sector. But there's definitely more interest in retail than we've dealt with. John, we covered some of this when we came to your workshop, but we'd love to see the ideal spread would be 1/3 in the city, 1/3 in the town of Queensbury, and 1/3 in the outer county. It's really more, almost 50% that are Queensbury based. And I think that highlights the strategic role that we play with Queensbury. In fact, today, between John and I, we're going to spend half of our day on things that are net new to Queensbury. That's just the way the mix comes. We want to try to advance as much as we can in the outer county, but the Queensbury piece of this continues to be the engine that drives it all. All right, some specifics. We have hosted the ESD to announce the state's programs under the umbrella of what's called the CFA. It's a common application that gives you access to more than 20 programs that the state some of which launch year after year and some of which are net new. I would say since COVID, we've struggled to develop an audience. When I was a board member and a business member of this community, I would go to these sessions that Ed would organize at the Crandall Library, and we would generally fill the room. And I can remember that the current governor actually gave the presentation more than once there. It doesn't matter who gives the presentation, and it doesn't matter what they say. Since COVID, there just hasn't been as much interest in the state's programs. Last year, we struggled to get more than 2 or 3 people who were even interested in filing an application. The world has changed dramatically. The amount of federal support, whether it's actually been withdrawn or there's just unsettling questions about whether or not it will remain, has driven many people to reevaluate state and local support for whatever it is that they're doing, some of which is municipal and some of which is business activity. But you can see from the pictures, we filled the room at Fort William Henry. And in fact, we probably had inquiries from 20 or 30 people who wanted information who didn't attend that session. The ESD guy said that that was one of the more robust sessions that they have been in recent times. I do want to highlight a couple of things that came out of it. There are new programs, and there's a page in here that talks about it. It's a lot of stuff. We tried to shove it on one page, but things that we thought might be particularly interesting to both municipal and business entities here. But there is a new program that the state is in the process of launching. They have essentially run the DRI process for 10 years, and there are 2 components of it. DRI, which is a $10 million award to a municipality, and what's known as New York Forward, which is a $4.5 million award to a smaller community for maybe a less ambitious agenda. 10 years of doing that means that in some cases they've essentially farmed the developable land in front of them. And at this point, they're almost recruiting communities to engage in the process. I think they're going to repoint some of those dollars to something called New York Achieve. And New York Achieve is still not fully defined, but they did talk about it from the podium. It's going to be a movement of money into one transformational project in a given region. Now, what is fascinating about this is not, and they didn't put a dollar limit on it, and they didn't explain the process. So I don't think it's going to have a $10 million cap. I think it's going to be monies that are allocated from year to year, but it's also a function of the business case that gets presented to them. 2 big changes this year. They put in broad, bold text that almost every award is now available to tourism, and that has not always been the case. Some of their traditional roles, whether it's for municipalities or whether it was for businesses, have essentially been off limits to tourism because there were other forms of funding that. But now they're recognizing the overlap in tourism being an economic development channel that also brings residents, that creates conversion for workforce. That is a big, big change. And we had a huge segment of the tourism world looking to figure out what new opportunities exist there. The second one was that people are already lined up, even though the programmatics are not available for this New York Achieve. We received several queries from organizations that are looking to put either working groups or advisory groups together to build a package. Several of those were based around assets in Lake George that came up in various tourism forums over the last few months. But the one that the ESD talked about from the podium, and they used as an example of a program that would fit under this banner, was the idea of a Center for Freshwater Protection, which we advanced a couple of years ago. And the reason that they like that is that it has a dimension that goes beyond economic development. It would obviously connect with organizations like DEC and academic institutions like SUNY, but they also like the idea that it creates net new economic development. So they heard what it is that we had to say. And then after the session, Mike Everly said, you should put a group together and make sure that that's one of the applications that goes in. So we are in the process right now of forming an advisory group that would help us build the business case as the programmatics become available. I will ask some of you whether you'd be willing to participate in that. That does not mean that that would be the only project that would be submitted from our area. It just means that we're going to hear the feedback that we're getting, which is you should advance the idea you've already thrown on the table. Okay. In addition, John, I'm surprised John's here. For the last 4 or 5 days, I don't know if John slept, but we submitted an application last night, a few hours before the weird deadline, which is not July 31st like the rest of the CFAs, but for some reason was June 17th at 10 o'clock at night or something. But the state repositioned some of the broadband money because they had not been able to fully deploy it and it had been sitting there unused for years. And they're specifically looking to orient that towards cellular expansion. Could be to cover areas that are currently uncovered, or it could be to add capacity. We've essentially already put in a $2 million grant to overlay additional capacity by 200 to 300% in 2 areas of Warren County. One is the downtown corridor of Glens Falls, and the other is the downtown corridor of Lake George Village. They are the ones that met the density kind of requirements of this particular grant. But I have to say, we haven't submitted a grant to them in a number of years, but I don't know that we've ever done one where we had something like 8 days to do it. John, because he has the broadband forum, yeah, it's pretty amazing. $2 million grant went in with a full slate of vendors, with an engineered solution, with a business case, with letters of support, with municipal engagements with both the city and the village, the county as well, John Taflin. All of that was done in 8 days. And the reason it was done in 8 days is because John had the group. He was meeting with them weekly. They were well established. They continue to meet every single week. And not everyone that's in that group stood to benefit from this grant. But they recognize that any award that continues to add to our telecommunications capacity here is in the interest of everybody. So they all jumped in. I don't know whether we're going to win or not, but I'm pretty sure that we presented a compelling case. In fact, when I was at LARAC this weekend, the leader of LARAC came back to me. He was aware that we were doing this, and he was already collecting data from his vendors about how often they were unable to complete a sale, because at times like that, there's a crush on the cellular network, and almost all of them are using that to monetize. And when a sale doesn't complete, that's a loss of sales tax revenue for us as a community, but it's also a lack of faith in this as a place that can host events like that. And he thanked us for being engaged in this. They also provided data, the city did, from the new farmers market, and we're starting to collect data from the shirt factory. Ray Perry from Lake George has been presenting their business case. I think we've presented as strong cases as it can possibly be for this, and our grant of $2 million is relatively modest. Important for you to understand, typically when you put in a grant, you have to have matching funds. There is a match, but it's the 1% fee that ESD charges for anybody just to put in. We work with the county, the city, Lake George Village, and us to say between the 4 of us, we would split what would probably be $20,000. We haven't defined what that split is, because it doesn't make sense for us to go forward with a resolution where we don't know that we've even won the award. But we do have an agreement amongst those 4 municipalities to share the cost in some proportional way. We will have some part of this. I would expect it to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000, but we'll see when it comes up. We have programming dollars that can be attached to this, so it's not like it's net new to us, but it's been a while since we've used them for something like this. But if we're able to deliver $2 million worth of additional capacity here for an investment on our part of only $5,000, or from the city's part of being maybe say $5,000 to $10,000, that's a wonderful leverage. And I want to thank you, John. You sat quietly and did it, and almost nothing the rest of us could do to get it done. But I was watching with bated breath last night to see whether or not it would get submitted in time. And when you sent me that email around 10 o'clock, it was well received. Finch has also submitted in this round an application that's already under review by the CREDC, which Kathy sits on, and you can see some of the interest there. The reason I tell you that is because we should support it. We're writing letters and trying to make sure that there's additional endorsement from places like the city, but honestly, they'll receive input from anybody. And if you believe, like we do, that continuing to support legacy employers like Finch that have been a cornerstone of our economy is important, whether it's you or your organization, we can give you a template and you can join the parade of endorsements to their application. So the details are there. If you want to know more, we can get you more. You can see some of the details about this connectivity grant in here too, but I think I've covered that. So, that's our report. But we have more to go. I know, no, we're ours for at least another 20 minutes.
No.
I have to explain to you that this is not just normal for us. You know, leadership transitions occur, people serve their terms and then they move on, and we value that. The very first person that I met in this community was Ed. And the second person that I met in this community was you. And I remember the day when that happened. I didn't know, I didn't even know what SUNY Adirondack was, but there were a number of programs at the time that we were trying to explore. And I went up to the office and I met Tressie for the first time, and then she introduced me to you. And then you came to our factory the next week and we talked about how we could collaborate. I didn't even know what I was talking about. And then we wound up doing collaborative things, whether it was bringing students in or whether it was developing that facility as a potential node for you to teach at. But it happened almost instantaneously. And I think this is to me, it's a perfect example of how you have worked in our community during your tenure here. There are some people who have outsized their impact. And I'm not going to read them, but I think you should. There are pages of things that you don't want to acknowledge, but that we need to know part of the record. That campus is fundamentally different than it was 12 years ago. In a time when obviously the demographics were working against this, you recognize that that is an irreplaceable asset, and you threw yourself at the idea of not just keeping it alive, but dramatically changing, modifying, evolving so it can continue to be a cornerstone of this community and this economy. And then you threw yourself at different things, personally. When we didn't have a chair, and this has been a struggle for the last several years to find somebody who is willing to commit the time to do it, you just gracefully stepped in. And to me, it was a fundamental need that we had. It was an example of your leadership. I don't know what we would have done if you hadn't said yes. You guys would have had to listen to me even more than you already do. But we didn't have to go through that because, like everything else, you just did what needed to be done. For the last 4 or 5 years, I've worked with you on a variety of things, including the Partnership for Community Belonging, which was there to fill this void about how do we acknowledge the fact that we can be better as a community in a whole variety of ways, but do it in a way that is less polarizing, less political, and all based on actually delivering impacting results. This has quietly been a galvanizing force for our community over the last 4 or 5 years. I don't know how it's going to function without you. I met with some of the Mark Bean and others that helped us organize this at the beginning. But quietly, hundreds of people have met under that banner, your campus or in the community, and they believe that there is now an interest in something that goes well beyond the boundaries of SUNY Adirondack. It talks about whether or not this is a place that is everything it should be and needs to be in order to thrive. The idea was germinated in our head. There was no money. There was no formal structure. There was just a need and just your leadership. There's going to be a hole in our community when you're not here every day. I'm glad that you will still reside here. I think we will still call on you. I can tell you this is sad. It's a sad day for us. No matter how good your successor is, the definition of transformational leader is a picture of you. Thank you. So we have a not normal gift for you.
Oh,
But you can read that card signed by everybody, but I'd like you to open that. Because it was something that people in this board helped us come up with that we've never done.
Well, I can just say that this is a very humbling experience to go through, as I keep saying, the longest goodbye in history. And But this board and this work that you all do, that I've been involved with almost since day one. As I remember, the first meeting I had was over in Barton with Chuck Barton and Edward Volunteer talking about these kids, and I didn't really even know what we were talking about, to be frank. Like, so, but to watch, you know, just this community evolve. When we first got here, husband and I, first of all, there was maybe, you know, one or two restaurants tops that we would have wanted to go to and for any regularity. Just to watch this community grow in ways that I think, unless you've been and we've only been 12 years, but it's been phenomenal. And you know, Jim's vision of how economic development can be a broader definition than what we've always been accustomed to, I think is going to launch us even further. And so we're grateful to you. I'm grateful to each of you, and some strong arming that we've had to do along the way sometimes to come along with us. So I will be cheering from the sidelines and always available to be part of anything that can be helpful. It's been, you know, the honor of a lifetime in terms of my career and professional life and so thank you for all the work you do, and I'll see you around. So at least
We're
gonna
hoping,
go to Nova Scotia.
we're hoping this will make sure that you spend more time.
Okay. Oh, are you kidding me? This is awesome. Thank you. Oh, do you know I like Cord?
We wanted to buy you your annual ski pass at Gore, and we worked with Ashley and her team to do it, and then we discovered you'd already done it.
Yeah, it really hurts on that one.
Yes, so so what we did do though was say that we need you to spend your skiing money and time here. So
I will do so. You could just produce a little snow once in a while. Be sure to use it. Thank you. This is very sweet.
well, I want to thank Ashley, who I think is on Zoom, and no, but Ashley and her team were very willing to go with us wherever we wanted to make sure that you continue to be there, and they recognized it, like so many other things you are.
Can I get a free parking spot?
I didn't ask them for that, but you might be able to use that to buy.
Maybe I could use it. Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's perfect.
Even Chris, when we get closer to the season, let me know, I'll pop the bump.
But if you don't ask, the answer's always no.
That's true. That's true. Thank you so much. And thank you. I will read all these. But thank you. So, and if you're not doing anything today, we are having a Juneteenth celebration starting at 12:30 on. So please join us. We have a speaker coming from University of Albany. We'll talk about why we celebrate Juneteenth. All right. Well, anything else that we consider to cover today?
No, I just don't want this meeting bad.
Well, unfortunately, I have a Board of Trustees Audit and Finance Committee meeting. All right, any more business to bring forward to the EDC today? There will not be a July meeting. You're welcome. And we will reconvene this board in August. So, any for an executive session? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Judy. Second. Thank you, Laura. All good. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I'm like.
Or did you get my? I got on my system. That's how it goes. Good. I just probably got it out. Stay on the.